The Specialist Firearms Command, Sc019, is the firearms unit of the Metropolitan Police Service, Greater London, England. The command is responsible for providing a firearms response capability, assisting the rest of the service which is not routinely armed. They are full-time units whose members do not perform any other duties. On occasion, they have been referred to as the Blue Berets, as they used to wear these. Today they are more likely to wear either blue baseball caps or combat helmets. Historical use of firearms. At its formation in 1829, the police service did not routinely carry firearms, but the Home Secretary later authorized the Commissioner to purchase 50 pairs of flintlock pistols for use in emergencies, such as those that involved the use of firearms. As time progressed, the obsolete flintlocks were decommissioned from service, being superseded by early revolvers. At the time, burglary, or housebreaking as it was then called, was a common problem for police, and housebreakers were often armed. Due to killings of officers by armed criminals in the outer districts of the metropolis, and after public calls debating whether Peel's service should be fully armed, the Commissioner applied to Peel for authorization to supply officers in the outer districts with revolvers. The authorization was issued on the condition that revolvers could only be issued if, in the opinion of the senior officer, the officer could be trusted to use it safely, and with discretion. From that point, officers who felt the need to be armed could be. The practice lasted until 1936, although the vast majority of the system was phased out by the end of the 19th century. In the 1860s, the flintlock pistols that had been purchased in 1829 were decommissioned from service, being superseded by 622 Beaumont Adams revolvers firing the .450 cartridge, which were loaned from the Army stores at the Tower of London following the 1867 Clerkenwell bombing. In 1883, a ballot was carried out to gather information on officers' views about arming, and 4,430 out of 6,325 officers serving on outer divisions wanted to be issued with revolvers. The now obsolete Adams revolver was returned to stores for emergencies, and the Bulldog Metropolitan Police revolver was issued to officers on the outer districts who felt the need to be armed. On February 18, 1887, PC 52206 Henry Owen became the first officer to fire a revolver while on duty, after being unable to alert the inhabitants of a premises on fire. Following the siege of Sydney Street in 1911, 1,000 self-loading Webley and Scott pistols were purchased. In 1914, the Bulldogs were withdrawn from service and returned to stores. Lord Trenchard standardized the issue of pistols among divisions with the number of firearms issued depending on the size of the area, when 10 pistols with 320 rounds of ammunition were issued to divisional stations, 6 pistols with 192 rounds per sub-divisional station, and 3 pistols with 96 rounds to each section station. In 1936, the authorization to carry revolvers on outer districts was revoked, and at the same time Canadian Ross rifles were purchased in the prelude to the Second World War. A review in 1952 following the Derek Bentley case found 15% of firearms in service to be defective, leading to Special Branch and Royalty Protection officers being rearmed with an early version of the Beretta semi-automatic pistol. Armed Response Vehicles. A BMW X5 Armed Response Vehicle of the Metropolitan Police. Armed Response Vehicles, ARVs, deployed for the first time in London during 1991. Following their success, forces outside of the capital later formed them throughout the early to mid-1990s. The concept of an ARV was influenced by West Yorkshire Police's instant response cars, as used in 1976. Early ARVs contained a secure safe between the seats containing a .38 Smith & Wesson Model 10 for each member, with two 9mm Heckler and Koch MP5 semi-automatic carbines secured in the boot. After ARVs became established, and the practice was accepted for widespread use, the Model 10 revolvers were replaced by more recent self-loading Glock 17s, firing 9mm rounds. Revolvers and pistols could be removed from the secure safe by ARV members, if an immediate threat to life was posed, in the opinion of the ARV member. Authorization to remove carbines required authorization from the control room once they had contacted an officer of Association of Chief Police Officers, ACPO, rank. If a high-ranking officer could not be sought to gain authorization, such could be given by a chief inspector in an emergency. In recent years when ARV members have carried their personal pistols on them as a matter of routine, and equipping of carbines rests on the judgment of the individual officer, although the control room must be informed of events.